where your food comes from? Have you ever stopped to think of how the food you eat affects your body and the planet? 200 miles away from London, in a city called Todmorden, a biochemical scientist realized he could help local people reconnect with the environment by planting fruit trees and herb gardens in the town center. Known as Nick Ring, the now farmer runs Incredible Farm, a place where he grows a variety of plants, keeps animals, and teaches young people about the food they eat and where it comes from.
I started doing all this in 2008. And the town was an unknown town. We could only, when people said, "Where do you live?" we had to say Todmorden is near Hebden Bridge, and people had heard of Hebden Bridge. And after about 2 or 3 years, we didn't have to say that anymore. We could say Todmorden, and people would say, "Oh, that's the town where there's vegetables everywhere."
Nick and I had been to France, and we'd seen vegetables and herbs being used in municipal planting around towns, just as ornament, not for any specific food reason. So that concept of growing vegetables in town kind of was planted then.
Over 2 or 3 years, we planted 750 fruit trees in different places around the town centre to remind people that food came from the ground. And that was 5 or 6 years ago, so they're just beginning to be mature trees and fruiting. And it's wonderful to see what works, what doesn't work, and to be able to pick fruit. And sometimes in the right time of year you can walk through town picking things and eating them as you go. So we kind of took the farming to the people and stuck it in front of the police station and the fire station and any bit of spare land where there wasn't anything planted. We put a fruit tree or a herb garden. And in this place, across the canal, there's an apricot tree and a herb garden just there. And I've actually had apricots off of that tree in the north of England, and it's a miracle because they won't really grow here.
One of the interesting things with the herbs and the treating ourselves is that now people are beginning to realise that if they eat honey that's produced locally, that the bees have collected from local flowers and local plants, that really helps them stop getting hay fever because they're having an allergic reaction to local pollen, that if they then eat the medicine almost that the bees provided, that in itself helps to cure it. So making sure that we're taking full advantage of what's around us locally is really, really important.
Nick maintains the farm with the help of a manager, volunteers, and his right-hand man Mike, who started as a volunteer.
Mike came along and said, "Will you teach me how to graft trees?" And I said, "Yes, when the time of year comes." And he just came every day.
Nick had been doing a lot of guerrilla planting of apple trees, mainly in food around town. And I was just I was really like working with him because he's very passionate about what he does, but he gets things done rather than just talking about it continuously. My passion is to reconnect people with the land and nature and get them to understand that you don't have to travel all around to a particular wildlife hotspot to appreciate nature. And I think the easiest way to connect people is through food, because you've got that direct contact and then you're ingesting it.
We're trying to get more schools. We've got a few schools that come on a regular basis, but we want to try and advertise out to more schools to come and see us. They don't understand about how things grow. So what we're trying to do is bring them here to have a look and see how things grow, and then encourage them to actually grow things in their own school grounds as well.
We get children here that come at the age of 9, and some of them are seriously asking whether potatoes grow on trees, and they clearly don't.
If you pick an apple straight from the tree, it is amazing. Totally different from anything you buy. If you dig a carrot up from the ground that's freshly grown, totally different.
Locally grown organic food, grown on real farms by real people like this, tastes better.
The love of what they do and wanting things to be better food, better quality food, you know what I mean? And it's just a nice place to be around, you know, to work. very, very relaxing place, you know, even though there's a lot to do.
We focus mainly on salad crops and greens, mainly because that's something that we can grow all year round. We want to, because our food is not just to supply restaurants and for eating, it's a tool in which we engage people with. We want something in the ground continuously, so we've always got that tool. We also grow, alongside that, we grow more unusual plants that are not necessarily that easy to get on a large scale, so we're not competing with wholesalers, so we might grow tomatillos as they're seasonally available, beans, leeks, green stick garlic.
As the learning process continues, Nick and Mike are improving their agriculture process by going back to the rotational procedure last used in the late 70s.
The old style, not that old style, but rotation, where you have animals for 1 year and then you have crops and then you have animals again. And the animals add organic matter to the soil. They've stopped doing that, and they just grow wheat year after year on the same soil. And what happens is the organic matter becomes depleted, and you just have mineral soil. So it's just effectively it's just sand, and you end up with something which is A, it's blowing away in the wind, and B, it can't hold the nutrients. And it doesn't have the structure that allows the plant's roots to breathe. So you end up with something which becomes more and more dependent on chemicals.
And we're trying to get them out on the grass as soon as possible, because that's more of a natural diet for them. And then we can help with the bug control and pest control.
Ideally, everyone should be completely self-sufficient. They should grow their own stuff, and you know, we shouldn't have this sort of globalized world market of food being grown on one side of the planet and being sent, you know, to completely the other side of the planet in huge containers.
Because although we're growing vegetables, it's not really a suitable landscape to grow lots of vegetables. It rains a lot here and it's very hilly. The best thing that grows is grass. So to turn that into food, cattle are really efficient. Much better than sheep, because sheep nibble the grass right down to very, very short, and there's no home for insects. Whereas cows use their tongue, wrap it around the grass and tear it, and they leave a rough stubble which is like that long, and there's a big habitat for insects. And if there's insects, there's birds, and if there's birds, there's also a whole ecosystem.
So what we do in the winter time, generally just at the end of winter and just going into it, we create hotbeds just to extend the season. And a hotbed basically is we fill all of this whole bed with horse manure, fresh horse manure, and as that breaks down, that produces a lot of heat. We can either then cap it off with soil, about so much, and plant directly into it, and planting so much soil gives enough room for the roots to go in without getting it burnt.
Soil isn't just dirt, it's a living, breathing system with lots of complex system with lots of organisms, and it needs to be fed.
The farm is a non-profit business based on a borrowed land. Their dream is to buy a bigger space with the help of the community. The new space would allow people to share and enjoy incredible farm.
I mean, not everything does survive, and we plant things knowing that a lot of things are gonna, the parks department are gonna spray it with weed killer, or somebody's gonna snap it off or whatever, and you just do it knowing that if a few survive, you've done well.
So from a society point of view, we've got a long way to go before we can start protecting and looking after our environment when we don't even know the basics. Society just don't believe they've got enough time or capacity to eat healthy, and that's not really the case. Most people can grow food on the doorstep or pick it from underneath the feet as a wild plant, but they're just not aware of that.
Might work for the future to get as many people involved in understanding the land and nature and where their food comes from and how to produce food as possible. And lots of people said it'll all be trashed and destroyed, but it hasn't been. because why would you destroy something that you own?